So I'm going to, again, I'm Ed Torres, and I'm so happy to see you all here. Thank you, it's a great pleasure.
Hi everybody, how's everybody doing? Everybody's good? Woo! Good. I'm Chris Jones from the Chicago Tribune. I've been writing about the Uptown for I think nearly 30 years, or certainly 25 years. I just want to say, to set the parameters of the evening, that the restoration of the Uptown Theater is essential for this city. It is not about if, it is about when. To do otherwise would be unthinkable and would never be forgiven by the generations of Chicagoans that follow us. And so, let's be clear, this has to happen. And it takes a will, but it has to happen. I think my interest in the Uptown began when, in the 1990s, I lived in the West Loop in the right around 1990, and then I moved to Belmont Avenue to a loft building in a building called Cinema Lofts, which those of you who are geeks on old theaters in Chicago know is a building inside what used to be a theater. Well, that's actually overstating it. It had what my friend Blair Kamen used to call a facade-ectomy that meant that only the facade remained. And that gave me a sense, as I looked in that building every day, of just the horrors of what can happen sometimes when only the facade remains. At that point, while I was living there, I got to know one of tonight's authors, Andy Pierce, who at the time I was writing for the Newsweekly New City, and I would call him up to find out about the Uptown Theater, because he had, as you all know, I think, a great interest in that. And he would never reveal his name. He was like my deep throat. So I think he was working for an alderman at the time. But he gave me all of this information, and I got to know exactly what went on. And then through my friendship with Jerry, I got to tour the Uptown Theater on a number of occasions. It's my contention that most Chicagoans don't know what's inside it. I cannot overstate that. They don't know. There are people in this room who have memories of the Grateful Dead and Bruce Springsteen, but that's a minority now of Chicagoans. And so I think it's important that everybody understands that most people don't know. This book, this fabulous book, does actually help people understand a little bit, but I still say again, a lot of the job now remains educating Chicagoans that this is not another theater. In the sense that I go in my life writing about the theater throughout the country, I've been in many, many, many beautiful movie palaces, many, many of them, and they are indeed beautiful, but there is nothing like the Uptown. It's extraordinary in and of itself. I often say that people go to shows, not to theaters, and that's true, but I would argue that in the case of the Uptown, it's the exception where people would go just to be in that theater. It's such a jewel in this city. And it is sort of amazing to me that it's not yet been restored. It's come close, as you all know. One day, I remember I was in my office at the Tribune. At that point, we were on our odyssey, on our decreasing odyssey through the city. At that point, we were in the Prudential building, and I pick up the phone, and the phone goes, "Hello, Chris, it's Mayor Emanuel." And I say, "Oh, how are you, Mayor Emanuel?" And he says, "I'm calling to tell you the Uptown is done." I said, "Great." And we ran a front page story, which some of you might remember, this is quite a few years ago now, where I wrote essentially that the Uptown Theater was going to be restored. It has turned out to be a longer journey than that, as you all know. I've never run a correction on that story because I still believe the Uptown Theater is going to be restored. So it is, for me, like a lot of people in this room, a long time wish that this theater can be, can arrive at something we can all be proud of again. I think it is a very doable amount of money that it needs. I think when you look at other things that we spend money on in this city, it's an investment that would pay off. I think it is the crown jewel of Uptown. It's the centerpiece of the Uptown Entertainment District. I think a lot of the things that people brought up years ago about whether people would go to such a theater in a neighborhood rather than downtown, I think that's all outmoded now. I think people would absolutely go. It is an essential thing that has to happen. And it's just a question of getting it together, getting the right people in the room, and telling Chicago what they have in this theater, which, as I said before, many, many people don't know. This is an extraordinary book. You'll hear all about the beauty of the Uptown from the authors, and I'll be back hosting a little bit of a Q&A afterwards. But I wanted, first of all, to introduce the Uptown Alderwoman, who is a big supporter of this project and a big supporter of this theater. So please give a warm welcome to Alderwoman Angela Clay.
Hey, good people, how are you?
Good.
Sorry that I'm a little late. I'm running from budget season. Somebody give me a glass of wine. My name is Angela Clay. I have the esteemed privilege of being the Alderwoman of the 46th Ward, wearing this crown. I want to first give a huge thank you to Cliff Dwellers for having us tonight. I want to give a second huge thank you to all of you for being here and your investment into this amazing icon. Jerry has been an amazing steward of this building. I appreciate you so much for keeping a roof over our heads. It's not an easy feat. I call the Uptown Theater the granddaddy of our ward. Thank you, Drake, for the water. I call it the granddaddy of our ward because it truly is that. It has so much history. It has how many of you here have ever stepped foot inside? Okay, hands down, you're lucky. Okay. How many of you have never stepped foot inside? Right. So, born and raised in Uptown, walked past this beautiful building my entire life, and I've only seen the outside. And so when I got into this beautiful position, the first place I went was, I need to see what's behind those doors. And Jerry said, come on. And when he opened the doors, it was like I stepped into a time capsule. Not just a time capsule, but an amazing historical beauty in our entire city and by far in the country. It engulfs you when you step just into the foyer of the building. And it got me to thinking, who was here? What shows played here? How did that, everything started to come out. And so it has been an amazing opportunity for me as a child of this neighborhood to be at the forefront of making sure that we get this theater reopened. They have my entire support, not just my entire support, but I'll give you a little history of what we've been doing since we got here. I recently had the opportunity of taking the mayor inside the Uptown Theater, which for him was like, what? Where are we? And I had been holding it for months. I said, you gotta come see it, you gotta come see it. And when he walked in, all of the pictures are of him just standing there in astonishment. His mind is blown. I have the commissioner of the Department of Planning and Development with us because we need them. Come here, let me show you what I got. And it was an amazing opportunity for us to start the conversation, but for them to also see that we are serious, right? And I know that there have been other administrations who have said, no, this is going to happen, but y'all, this is going to happen. We have no choice but to It is more than a theater. It is a cultural institution. It is a hub. It is a historical anchor in our ward that more people need to understand what's behind those doors. There are so many other opportunities that we have here to also make sure that it is a communal space, right? And also that we get creative. It's 2025, you all. Jerry, I pitched this to him so many times now. I want to go back in time and see who was playing on that stage. I want to put on some virtual reality goggles, sit in a chair, and see who was playing on that stage, right? I think that we have some amazing ways to get creative in how we use this space, and tell the story of the space. I would not be remiss if I did not shout out these two amazing humans for writing this book. Okay? The level of details that are in this book, you will not find just by walking by or a simple Facebook post, okay? They did their due diligence to go back in the history books, go back in the archives, and give you a blast from the past. This is 100 years old that we're talking about, right? And so I appreciate you all for never giving up on this theater's journey, and I appreciate you for putting it in front of the world so that they understand how important this is to all of us. There are not a lot of historical buildings that are still set in stone in this city or across this country that are a century. I'm very proud of that. I'm so thankful that we have an opportunity like this, and I'm also equally proud that we're going to do this together. So my pitch to you tonight is buy the book, please. Buy the book, because it is going to open your eyes to all of the amazingness that goes on behind the scenes. But also, please continue to stay in contact with us as we move forward. This is not an easy feat. It's going to take hundreds or millions of dollars to get this guy back open, but it is worth the investment. And so you have my commitment, you have the city's commitment, that we're going to make sure that we put all of our necessary tools behind making sure that it reopens. So I appreciate all of you all for spending time with us tonight. I appreciate you for bringing your wealth and your wisdom. And I really appreciate you when we get back in there and we have a grand old reopening. Good?
Yeah.
Join me, if you will, let go of the present, and put yourself here on a Michigan Avenue, looking north in 1924. The magnificent Wrigley Building, seen here at center left, started in 1920, is now finished and gleaming brightly in the sun over Chicago. President Warren G. Harding died following a heart attack last year, and silent Calvin Coolidge became president. Native Americans were first recognized as U.S. citizens. There's a plan underway for Germany to pay reparations to other European nations for the damages of World War I. Bobby Franks is kidnapped and murdered by Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb. Al Capone is waging a bloody battle for control of Cicero. Imagine you are a 10-year-old boy or girl living in Uptown. You've been shopping and going to the dentist with your mother in Uptown Square, and as you leave the dentist's office and cross the street, you open your eyes to the bright February sun and a blanket of fresh snow to see they're tearing down the old Green Mill Gardens. And there is talk of Balvin and Katz building a new theater on the land they are clearing, which includes what was the outdoor beer garden, stage, and terrace seating of the world-famous outdoor Green Mill Gardens. You happen by later, and the northern end of the Green Mill building on Broadway has been cut away, and men are excavating to make space for the theater's gigantic lobby. It's an exciting thing to see built here on the north side, which is already known for its beer gardens, dance halls, theaters, and refreshing lake breezes. In the summer, one of your family's favorite pastimes is swimming at the Clarendon Beach, along with the other boys and girls from West Winnebago Avenue. We know from the census that your family name is Werner, Stromberg, D'Ambrosio, Cochran, Markling, or Swanson. Your grandparents came from the old country, Sweden, Italy, Germany, Denmark, England, or Ireland. They live back in the old neighborhood. Your family is living in a much newer and nicer apartment in Uptown. Your father makes a living making wrought iron, is a cabinet maker, a grocery clerk, a bricklayer, or a city street sweeper by hand. He makes just over $1,500 a year. A movie ticket costs 25 cents. As the months go by over the ensuing year, you watch workers use steam engines to hoist steel beams and construct trusses over the theater's lobbies and auditorium, We're looking to the northwest here. The exit or Lawrence lobby is in the foreground. The beginning of the stage house and auditorium is in the center. You pass by the site and you see electricians pausing for a photograph in the space that will be the auditorium, just as they are beginning to install decorative lighting. Here in these mugs, you see all the mutts of Europe working for a better life here in Chicago. And it seems like it's taken forever, but it was really just over a year's time. The $4 million Uptown Theater fills almost the entire city block and is opening. And your mom has gotten you both tickets for the grand opening. You cross the street and join the large crowd that's already gathering. It's 85 degrees Fahrenheit and climbing on August 18, 1925, as thousands of people gather for the first public look at the new Balvin Katz Uptown Theater, a building touted as built for all time. This is the state of the world to which the Uptown opened its doors. Inside, Balvin Katz promised otherworldly escape, a comfortably cool climate, and room for everybody. You enter an 8-story lobby rising from Italian marble floors to gilded plaster columns with beautiful water-bearing maidens cast into them, and deep red wool damask walls framed by heavy ornate curtains with golden trim and tassels, all the way up to giant bronze and crystal chandeliers just below trefoil windows with dimly lit faux-stained glass. To your left rises the first section of the grand stair. As you climb the stair, you look back toward Broadway. As you climb the stair, you look back toward Broadway and the entrance doors a half block away. And you see daylight streaming through the grand window and 2 of the 3 grand chandeliers. It's tough to fit all 3 into one view. You reach the mezzanine and become entranced with the gallery of spaces for art, oil paintings, marble, sculptures, and furniture fit for royalty. Below you and further west, closer to the next lobby, is a beautiful and almost silent fountain comprised of marble scagliola plaster with a beautiful marble statue. Colored lights play on its surfaces, and local florists provide decoration. Further into the theater as you walk, you encounter a large lounge area off the mezzanine foyer, just past the grand stair. The arch above you was curved as you entered the space, but from this view it appears square. A neat design trick, but a draper's nightmare. For scale, the lovely desk at left is 52 by 84 inches, complete with stationery in case you would need to write a letter. You continue walking. You enter the grand foyer, or Magnolia lobby, which has a different but still Spanish and cohesive design scheme, with more faces, putti, and heraldry. The ladies' lounge is at the bottom right. The children's playroom or nursery suite is at the bottom center. The men's lounge is at center right. And the manager's office suite is at the rear center. You walked almost a full city block because Magnolia Avenue is outside the doors at the bottom of this view. On the mezzanine level of the grand foyer, you see all the elements that make any 1920s fantasy room come together. Art, furniture, decorative lighting, drapery, ornate plasterwork, all coming together. Through the doorway, under the howling face of Poseidon, are doors leading to the auditorium. You walk further and climb higher, and enter, and it takes your breath away. Here's a room larger than any church, any auditorium, any theater, any gym that you've been in, and you take it in for a moment. Looking from the stage with your back to Lawrence Avenue, looking north, you see the 8 levels of the auditorium, from the main floor to the mezzanine level of seating, to the 4 floors of the balcony, to the unusual 7th level passage that overlooks the auditorium. On both sides, you see the projection booth even there at the top, with the square portals at the center, all the way up to the 3 tiers of the Golden Dome, all with recessed lighting that could be controlled. You can go back and look at that full view of the auditorium from the balcony. The decorative lighting in all the coves could be controlled to set the tone for the performance, music, or movie scene. Picture the lights in these recessed spaces emanating from these arches, cornices, windows, and layers of the dome. Blue for night, lavender for love, red for war, green for forests, golden hues for sunrise. From the house left in the balcony, you peer down at the orchestra lift, which is raised in the pit, a separate lift with a conductor in the center, and for the organ and organist at far right. Above the orchestra lift is the center attraction of this entire block-filling building, the 70-foot 1-inch stage spanned by the cove-lit proscenium. And within it, you see the grand drape and an interstage set, which frames the small movie screen with a still new technology of the time. The house right organ screen can be seen at far right. Unbeknownst to your now 11-year-old self, you've seen all the elements that make up a movie palace, built for the artistic presentation of stage shows, theater organ, orchestra, and silent film. Behind the monumental facade, with a lobby like a train station, these multiple thousands of seats and a balcony, all under one roof, in a full working stage and stagehouse. Now, please welcome Robert, who's going to tell you more about the opening program in the entertainment floor.
In August 1925, the anticipation was building. Newspaper ads announced the Uptown Theater's grand opening using flowery language. The theater of 1,001 wonders, magnificence beyond all your dreams, rising in mountainous splendor and might, an enchanted palace, a house of magic beauty. This ad used a famous phrase coined by the German writer Goethe, calling the Uptown Theater architecture like frozen music. It will hush and thrill you. It throbs with beauty, lovely enough to hold the heart of a woman all her life. The company taking out these ads was Balaban and Katz. This chain of movie theaters was run by two Jewish families from the West Side. They started with small Nickelodeons. But as more people flocked to see movies, Balaban and Katz opened bigger and bigger theaters. They chose locations in a circle around downtown Chicago, building theaters in outlying neighborhoods, places where busy new business districts were springing up. They opened the Central Park Theater in 1917 on the west side, the Riviera in 1918 in Uptown, the Tivoli in 1921 on the south side, and then they finally built one in the Loop, opening the Chicago Theater also in 1921. These were some of the first theaters in the world with air conditioning, which was a big selling point. No one had AC in their homes back then, so when people went to the shows when they wanted to cool off, and Balaban and Katz often showed snow and icicles on the names of the movie theaters and their advertisements. The architectural firm that was responsible for these theaters was Rapp and Rapp, which was run by two brothers from Carbondale, George Leslie Rapp and Cornelius Ward Rapp. When people stepped inside a theater designed by Rapp and Rapp, they felt like they were walking into a European castle. The architectural firm created wide auditoriums. This is one of the blueprints that you can look at yourself if you go to the Chicago History Museum's Research Center, and they'll hold them out for you, and I snapped this picture of it. This cross-section shows the different levels of the theater with the seats toward the stage, which gives you an idea of how it's all arranged. Because you had 4,300 seats in the Uptown Theater, you also had to have a ton of space for the people who were waiting to see a show. Now, it's kind of unbelievable today if you think about the idea of building a movie theater with 4,300 seats. When would that ever be filled? But in that era, in the 1920s, people were just buying a lot more movie tickets than they are today. So the idea was if you had 4,000 people in a show, you might have a few thousand people in other parts of the building, like the grand lobby here, that were waiting to get in when seats became available. So as August 18th, 1925 approached, the ads told people to clear their calendars and make sure they don't have any appointments on that day, which happened to be noon on a Tuesday, which seems like a strange time to hold a grand opening, but that was when they did it. And here's another photo from the grand opening, and you can see on the marquee of the building, it says an acre of seats in the Magic City. And it refers to the Uptown Theater as one of the great art buildings of the world. At nighttime, the building was lit up with thousands of light bulbs. Now, the first movie for the grand opening was one that most people have not heard of today because it's largely forgotten, The Lady Who Lied. But you know, the audiences were turning out that week to see the theater. The movie was almost secondary in terms of what interested them. But the movie wasn't the entire show. Balaban and Cats presented what they called continuous entertainment. So along with movies, the show included an orchestra, song and dance routines, comedians, a giant Wurlitzer organ. When the silent movies played on the screen.
Jewel, Shuttered Queen, waiting on a revival. The media has always been very generous to the Uptown. Any mention of it, it's a good thing. You know, we all love it, and everybody's on board. Phil Bowman here is arguably the first friend of the Uptown. There's a direct line between Phil and my mentors and friends who he handed off to. Phil was there when it closed as a movie house, and again when it reverted back to Plitt after the Raviella family operated and also lived there. Phil's raising a red flag here that the building is in distress, and the Plitt is no longer interested in maintaining it. Their interests have shifted to strip mall multiplexes. Phil's calling Plitt, they are not picking up the phone. There's also Al Wolovich, who remains a historian and gives tours throughout the city. You may have seen him on a boat or at historic Second Presbyterian Church. Al Wolovich here talking about the importance of the Uptown back in, did you say 1982?
Yeah.
People are amazed to hear and see that this is the way the Grand Lobby appears today. Similar reactions are, wow, and then, oh, I understand why it's going to take so much work and so much money to restore it. And almost everyone dreams about it after seeing it in person for the first time. Everything in the Uptown is big or oversized, and all of its systems and most of its finishes date to 1925. It is still here because of the quality of its initial design and construction. Think about deferred maintenance beginning in the 1960s. And it's also here because of our fondness for it, appreciation of, and hard work to keep it from further ruin. This carefully planned and magnificently cohesive Spanish fantasy design is worth preserving. Credit is due to its originators, decades of volunteer labor, the city of Chicago, and to its current owner, Jerry Mickelson, and 29-year caretaker, David Sifchek. The Uptown is kept clean and dry and clutter-free as possible. It shows well for tours of prospects, investors, and officials. This is a rarely photographed hallway above the Grand Foyer or Magnolia Lobby, looking east toward Broadway, with entrances to the auditorium and balcony at right. Here's a great view of the Grand Foyer or Magnolia Lobby from Susie Poling. This is looking toward Magnolia Avenue and the manager's office suite that we talked about earlier. The balcony remains closed, but ready for its revival. Many people remember sneaking up here for movies, making out, and running away from ushers during the late 1960s and early 1970s. It was closed when the full capacity was not needed. It's a great view of a portion of the mezzanine seating, showing both its elegant design and the need for restoration. This is the view from the balcony. looking all the way to the orchestra lift at the bottom, the steel fire curtain framed by the proscenium with the organ screens at left and right, and the dome above. A similar view from house left, showing all of the original colors, varnishes, and patina that have given the Uptown its time-worn, majestic, castle-like feel from the beginning, a distinct air of mystery. Today, the book is the best way to see and share the Uptown. It's our hope that you feel as we do, that this place matters and merits restoration, so everyone can enjoy one of the great art buildings of the world again. Please share its story with your friends, family members, and all your friendly neighborhood millionaires and billionaires. It is in vogue now to ask billionaires to give up a little. $1 million used to sound like a lot, but now that's 2 Chicago bungalows, maybe. So, billionaires. The Uptown requires an extreme act of legacy-level altruism to be restored and used. It is truly, and now say it with me or after me like you mean it, it is truly a building built.
It's truly a building built.
A building built.
Building built.
Not for today.
Not for today, but for all time.
For all time.
Oh, there we are.
Thank you.
You really deserve all of our gratitude. Give us your sense of where we're at now. Like, do you feel, I know that we all keep optimistic about this theater, but where you've watched mayoral administrations come and go, you've watched promises that have been made and not necessarily come together. What is your sort of up-to-date sense of where we're at with the Uptown Theater?
Selfishly, anyone who knows and loves this building, we want it done in our lifetime, right? So I, as a volunteer, Jerry as the owner, others who work there, friends, we want it done now. How can we do that? This book tells all the secrets. You have every right to help us solve this riddle. You have the tools we have. There is nothing, is there anything you kept back? No, there's nothing we know that now you don't know. So, my view, Chris, is that everyone is deputized to help, and no one's turned away. So, there's a big private financial lift that has to happen here. There has to be more state and city incentives than we have traditionally given to projects. This is different. We're going to have to ante up. I think that's where we're at right now. It's the opportunity we need to seize, and selfishly, in our lifetime.
Okay, let's take some questions from the audience. Lady right here.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, has anybody tried to approach all the superstars we have? They make $10 million a year. If they just contributed $1 million of their $10 million, but really, you know, we need to approach them, and because they're part of Chicago.
Right, which Springsteen going to pay for the Uptown, Annie?
I don't think they can tell you no, but we need you to do that kind of outreach and tell people why it's important to you.
All right. Gentleman right here.
Yes, how is it that the Aragon of the Riviera had continued to at least remain solvent while the Uptown has remained closed? Is it simply the size of the building?
In case you didn't get that, the question was, how has the Aragon and the Riviera remained solvent while the Uptown has had to close? Is it simply the size of the Uptown that's made that impossible?
Yes, the size is a big factor, but one issue is that when the owners were, earlier owners in the early 1980s that were basically letting this building sit there and not keeping it heated, and some damage happened when water pipes drained water from the roof down through the building first. So there's still some damage that needs to be repaired. You can see from the photos that the building still is in good shape, but I think at that point in the 1980s, it became a bigger ask to try to get this place open again. It needed more work than the Riviera and the Aragon ever did.
Ditto. No, and seriously, picture a scenario where the Uptown never went offline, right? That it wasn't left unheated through multiple winters, things didn't start to implode. Also, the Riviera's had the Aragon has had upgrades over the years. Uptown still remains locked in time. It needs all of this beautiful stuff repaired and restored. It also needs all of the systems replaced. So it's a heavier lift to open those doors.
Understood.
Gentleman in the back here, got some questions in the back, madam.
Thank you so much. Is it possible to open up the theater for a museum or tours that can raise some revenue towards the restoration of the theater?
It's a great question. I want to run the microphone back because we only have one microphone.
The other one's broken, sorry.
Well, again, this is something Jerry might be able to answer, but I know there are some restrictions right now about opening the building for tours and so forth. I do think it would be beneficial if more people got a chance to go inside and see it. I also think that once it reopens, just look at this space here. What could you do with this space other than having people standing in there waiting to see a concert? You could have parties, you could have art exhibits, you could open some kind of like black box theater in some other part of the building. I would really hope that the Uptown Theater would have multiple uses and be used at a very high level where lots of things are going on. Would you want to add anything?
Okay, more questions?
I'm almost to feel as old as the Uptown tonight. The question I have is really, at this particular time, what is the city's position financially along with any of the TIF funding? That is it available? Is there some available? Is there no available? I heard a lot of promises here and kind of, platitudes from the alderman, but I'm not getting anything definitive.
Well, we have the alderman, so I'm going to ask him. So let's do that. Andrew.
Hey neighbor, how are you? I don't want to be in the center, y'all. I'm going to go up here so that you can see me. That's a huge question, neighbor. And so right now, the TIF has an allotted portion of funds for the Uptown Theater. However, 12 million, right? And that was there before I even thought about getting into this life. And so what we've been trying to do is, one, meet with DPD so that they understand the scope of work that is going to take here. And also because historically you don't use a TIF for just a project, right? It is supposed to be fleshed out and go into other spaces. Within this TIF, you have the Uptown Theater. We also have another historic trophy called the Preston Bradley Center, which is right up the street from it, which is another beautiful historic building that is also going to need some funding to do some pretty historical lifts. We also have, this is just me, y'all, telling you all my business of this TIF. We also have McCutcheon Elementary School that doesn't have a gym right now. It's one of the only elementary schools in all of Chicago public schools that does not have a gym, right?
It doesn't come out of the TIF though.
Well, a part of that is using TIF funds to help them build a gym, right? They had $10 million set aside before, and then CPS just told us this year that that money is nowhere to be found. So I have to go and make sure that every little piece of this TIF is divvied out to these very, very important projects. But it also requires that it's not just 12 million that's needed in TIF funding for this project. So there is a line item in there. It gets carried over year after year, but we have to expand it. Does that answer your question? I'm not passing this mic around.
I'm gonna, my friend Jerry is back there, and he's a good guy, as you all know. I'm gonna take the liberty of walking over there and asking him. Come on, Jared, come on up. This is the moment. Why don't you tell us what this is going to take and how you envision the Uptown going forward?
Well, first, Andy Pierce has been an avid, big supporter of the theater for years, and Dave Subcheck and a couple people still aren't here anymore. So without those people, I wouldn't be here today talking to you about the Uptown Theater. But with that being said, we did a deep dive, as I said in the video, and it's $190 million to restore. That's no small task, but it's got to get done. I mean, it's the most beautiful theater I've ever been into, and most everybody will agree with me on that one. But the great thing is we've got a, it's like I said, we're not chasing dreams. We've got a plan, and the plan has to be that we get enough funding. It has to be a not-for-profit. This cannot be a for-profit venture. The gap that we have to fill in restoring it has to come from philanthropic individuals who have the wherewithal to do this. But it first has to start with the city, and I'm not putting anything on the city, but they've got to make a meaningful investment for others to step up and do the same thing. So that's the plan. The plan is to get the doors open, to get the money. We know what it's going to take. We've got an all-star team working on this, from developers to architects to construction company to restoration companies. Everybody's in line. Great legal expertise, great everything. So now's the time to make it happen. Now's the time to get the doors open and move forward, because this is too beautiful to let it waste like it is.
All right. Thank you, Jared. I think the owner.
One is raising revenue to make it for the doors to open, but once it opens, you gave examples of what it could be. What does that depend on? Is that, like, if it is indeed a not-for-profit, what does it depend on what that could be? The mayor had really good, the alderperson had good ideas of things it could be, so did you. How is that decided?
Found it, I'll give you that.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Is it a political question you're asking?
No, it's just, it seems like it would be possible to say, we want to open the doors for this. What are the this? What are the possibilities?
What would it be? What would the new
Right.
Uptown? That's
Come
a
on,
good.
Jerry.
Exactly.
What would it be? Let's talk about what the vision is, right? That's what we're on.
And
That's what you're
Jerry,
asking.
you
Right,
talked
right.
about wanting this building to benefit young people.
Right.
So it'll be a place for concerts. That's the revenue driver. But it's more than that, and the alderman alluded to that as well. It's going to be for the community. The People's Music School, located in Uptown. We're currently using the Riviera to let them fundraise. They're going to move over to the Uptown. Shy Arts, Merit School, CPS, all are going to be able to use this for their own fundraising and other benefits that they see they can get from it. After School Matters, same way. But most importantly, I think the thing that excites me is it's going to provide jobs and opportunities for our youth. I want kids, not kids, but youth to be working there, working front of house, working back of house. They'll never get that opportunity, but this theater they will. So this is going to be something unique that's never been done by anybody, and that is giving people the opportunity to open up their eyes as to what they maybe want to do when they grow up. So I'm most excited about the quality of the jobs and things they'll be able to get out of this theater. That again, it's not just a theater for music. The music is the revenue driver, but it's creating all these other great things that nobody has ever done before.
Let me get a question from this gentleman in the back who's not been able to answer a question yet. So hold on. Here we go. Sir?
Oh, thank you. Fine. All right, so I'm a layperson, and I understand from my perspective, it doesn't look like there's enough from the city and TIP funds to help. I can't see nonprofits being able to put in the money to what you're talking about to raise the amount of money you need to restore the place. Now, my question is about private equity. I actually suggested this to Alderwoman Clay when I was at the photography, or the centennial photograph over on Broadway. I was originally thinking, you know, why not approach a company like Amazon? It's a multimedia company that is not only making movies, but looking to like outreach and develop its footprint in multimedia everywhere. I understand this is a special place for concerts and for the kids in the community to participate and get jobs. But I was just out in Las Vegas at the Sphere and recognizing how the developers of the Sphere had created this amazing multimedia facility with the Sphere. And I think of Amazon, and if you don't want to do it as like a private equity thing, great. Go to Jeff Bezos's divorced wife who's like throwing money into everything, donating money into everything. It's not necessarily a private equity thing. She's looking to fund things. I guess my perception is that outside the TIF money from the city and relying on nonprofits that don't have a lot of money, where else do you go aside from billionaires, millionaires, or perhaps some of the directions I was just talking about, if there isn't an interest in embracing some private equity to help raise the estate, which is a lot of money. And I want to see this done so badly, Mr. Mickelson. I was actually going to talk to you privately about this, but I figured since there's an opportunity to open up the floor for that beyond TIF funds and nonprofits, is there an opportunity or is there an interest in maybe embracing some private equity that's not necessarily going to take over it as a stake, but get involved as a nonprofit? I don't know. As a layperson, I'm just tossing out ideas.
All right, we're going to ask Jerry that question. Aren't you glad you stood up now and came to the front?
You raise good points, and that is part of the plan. But we can't do anything until we know what how we're going to work with the city. That's the most important part of this partnership, is the public-private partnership with the city. And once we know what that is, then we can go out and go to some of the people you just named, because they can afford to do this. And it's not just being able to afford to do it, it's looking at this beautiful building and trying to save it. And I think once you walk through it, once we get them into the theater, seeing is believing. But you're absolutely right. We need the help of people who have the wherewithal to do it.
Gentleman in the front.
Community. Yeah, my name is Albert Goodman, Goodman Theater.
Woo!
I was tied up at the John David Mooney Foundation. But this place, the Uptown Theater, has been so important to me. It goes back 25 years when my mom passed away and left a foundation. I donated $1 million for a foundation.
I remember that.
To try to get this thing going. And it didn't get far enough. We need a lot more money than that.
I remember that.
But let me tell you the significance about this 100-year thing, because that's 100 years ago that the Goodman started over here at the Art Institute. It's also 100 years ago that the Sullivan and Harris theaters were started. And so the whole thing kind of came together about this being the time to put our acts together and restore this beautiful theater. You know, when I first got involved with it, and I got the special tour, you saw that gentleman who helped me do it. He informed me about, I wasn't here earlier if you covered this subject, but this was one of the first places that had air conditioning. And a lot of people came here for the air conditioning. Holy hell. And then it went on for all the other beautiful history-making things that we can repeat with your funding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming to our events for buying, reading, sharing the book. Publisher Mike Williams told us tonight that we're down to just a few hundred copies left in warehouses.
All right.
So, Janet Joplin said, get it while you can, get it while you can. The next book's going to be The Restoration and the Opening.
Yeah.
Any other words? Okay.
I always love coming to the Cliff Dwellers, so I'd like to thank the Cliff Dwellers for hosting this event, and Christian. Jerry and Brett to close out as a head of the architectural lecture series. We have a lot of these coming up. Next year, we have some very exciting lectures and programs. And I want to thank everybody here. I also want to give a shout out to the staff and the chef. They worked really hard tonight to feed you guys with these drinks. And I also want to acknowledge somebody from the Department of Planning, Landmarks, Candlelight Hahn, and Ward Miller from Conservation Chicago, also here. And thanks everybody. Be safe, but the bar's still open, so if you want to have one.
Thanks for being here. No, thank you.